Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to look at the next part of Star Wars vs. 40k. This is Episode 2, A New Threat. Now, first time around, I wasn't really sure what we're getting into because it's fanfiction. There's a really wide margin of shit, followed by some things that are absolutely amazing, and then there's that cream of the crop, which is like, holy shit. This, so far, I wasn't really sure where it was, but it's definitely in the really good section right now. And that's just the first episode, which I've been told is the weakest so far. And then people are really calling out some of the future episodes. So I'm really excited to see where this goes and what's going on by someone who a lot of people in different forums have told me is something of a lore master for both Warhammer and 40k, which are the same thing. And I mean, maybe fantasy for all I know, but also Star Wars, which are two franchises that are very well known to have very small pools of lore that are easy to comprehend. Yeah. And now that my house has been hit like lightning because of that amount of blasphemy, we're going to jump right in and see where this goes. I'm really curious, but otherwise, you guys know the deal. Link below, original video, hit it up. Let's get started. Is that from the movies? Can't tell. Really zooming in on this one. To show the transition into the setting, okay.
They have been stationed within System K749 for 2 weeks now. 2 weeks of watching Dr. Sheena and her team pace and argue and tap on their data pads.
Really?
2 weeks of watching his master Jedi Knight Ren-Fi do almost nothing but meditate. 2 weeks of doing everything in his power to escape that meditation. At first, Gaffin took shelter with the clones, but that proved only marginally less irritating than listening to his own breath, since all they did was drill and complain about drilling. They didn't watch how...
And that right there, that indicates this is a person who at least knows something about military service. Because if you talk to anyone who is former or current military, you get that comment, especially if they're, infantry. If it's, officers, it depends who you're talking to. But infantry, oh yeah, no. You're supposed to bitch. In fact, if you don't, there's something wrong with you.
Holovids or play Pazak, at least not most of them. Their hobbies, passions, and fun-time distractions all had to do with fighting, or training to fight, or cleaning weapons, counting ammunition, or sometimes comparing
the guys
war
in the background
stories.
fist fighting. This is from the Clone Wars,
Gaffin's
right?
master had once mused to him that the Republic...
Actually, is this from the Clone Wars where it was a 2D show that they did in 5-minute increments on Cartoon Network prior to the actual Clone Wars 3D TV show? Or did they just do some really good art? Honestly, it can go either way on this one.
Republic had never created anything as efficient and effective as the Clone Army.
Trooper
an entire army and armada of what amounts to be tamed Mandalorians. The Republic will never lose another conflict due to strength of arms.
Well,
Maybe
funny thing about
was
that.
true. Maybe it wasn't. Gaffin was no expert in Mandalorians, though he figured his former acquaintance, Ahsoka Tano, would know a fair amount by now.
Oh, Ahsoka
He had known
adjacent.
her as a learner before she had been taken for training under a proper master, and he had heard of her exploits in regards to that new...
I know that from this character's perspective, calling Anakin a proper master makes perfect sense. But the idea of Anakin being proper, I'm sorry, that just tickles me pink. I don't even know why pink. It's a stupid metaphor, but it's one that sticks, and goddamn, it does work right now.
nearly extinct warrior culture. More troublingly, he had also heard that she had chosen to leave the Jedi Order.
Oh,
though he
and we've
knew
dated
only a
it that
few
far
of
into the
those
Clone Wars.
details.
Oh.
His pondering was
That's
interrupted
third.
as
I know it's not the point of this, but all I'm thinking right now is, hiding from clone troopers. I'm sure this is a skill that will never get any practical application. And considering the crossover against clone troopers, it probably won't. Against other guys in power armor, I give it 50-50 odds.
He is here, Captain. He's
Whose
just
voice is that?
slacking off, said Ren-Fi with a shake of his head. What are you going to do when you find him? The captain asked. The Jedi General shrugged.
That's the
I
Jedi.
suppose
Rada?
I'll have
Rada?
to force him to make up for all the lost time he wastes.
Interesting voice they gave him, but
3
oh wow, that must be hard on the
days
throat.
of isolative meditation will do us both
How many
some
days?
good.
Gaffin's blood ran cold in time with Captain Kraken's whistled reaction. Not pulling any punches this time, eh, sir? The clone captain said with a snicker.
Well, if we discover that he was not slacking off, perhaps helping Dr. Sheena, then maybe it would only be 3 hours.
This is good writing right here. Not just because they're having a discussion about what would happen and the honestly rather impressive voice that he's holding through on, but they're writing a character perspective, watching other people do all the conversation and dialogue back and forth. And that when you listen to it, you realize there's 2 points to this view. One, there's the main character and what he sees and how he perceives it as, oh shit, I should do something. But then you can obviously see that the master is aware of it, and what he's doing is manipulating his Padawan into going and being useful while still not meditating. And he's doing it on his own terms, so he is probably not bluffing about it, but also he knows that the Padawan's there. And you can see that so clearly in this entire situation that they've created. Instead of coming out and saying that he is doing this, they're showing you. And this is something I actually really appreciate, because in the first part, they talked about this one up-and-coming captain, or lieutenant or whatever. We only met him briefly, and I already forgot based on my memory shit, but who was really proud and smart and upcoming and just all these great words. Didn't show any of it. Here, though, we're showing that this is a very competent Jedi because he is saying what needs to be heard by his Padawan for his Padawan to take the actions he wants, and doing it in a way where he's like, well, I don't know where he's at, but if I did, I would like him to go do this, but he's not here to know this. So sad. So it just shows a lot about the characterization of him, what he wants to do, how he prioritizes it, and that he's actually rather sly for a Padawan. And this is just really good writing because it shows so much about the characters. And it's just really good for that.
Of meditation instead of 3 days.
The clone tilted his head in confusion, but Ren Fai said nothing more. The statement clearly struck Captain Kraken as odd, and he remained in the room even as the Jedi moved on, looking around suspiciously. Ah, blast it. Open up these vent covers. I know he probably can't fit in there, but that boy is damn flexible. All the Jedi are.
Yeah.
The other clones moved to comply, but Gaffin had left even before the captain had issued his command. The boy had decided
the captain figured out he was talking for the boy's
and grow
benefit.
horns before he willingly walked into a 3-day-long meditation session. He inched his way along the tight confines of the vents, making himself weightless with the Force while pushing and pulling himself with the tips of his fingers and toes.
Absolutely broken usage.
He was 14, soon to be 15, but he hadn't quite hit his growth spurt yet, and was making full use of his size before he lost it. Lots of learners had expressed a desire to grow quickly, but Master Yoda was smaller than all of them, and he was Grand Master.
Yep.
It wasn't long before he found himself edging along the ceiling of the impromptu science laboratory that the researchers and scientists had been using to do their work. He stopped when he was just above Dr. Sheena, a Syrian scientist who worked for the High Chancellor as one of his staff. It was apparently rare for her to work outside of his gaze, and Gaffin knew why. Dr. Sheena was jumpier than a loft cat in a spice rack. Smirking.
Well, I don't understand that reference because I don't know anything about Star Wars. Don't need to realize, oh, he's sneaking over someone jumpy in a lab. And he's probably about to jump down. As much as the previous section showed how smart and wise the Jedi General was, it's showing this guy is a kid and he's not thinking it through. This is what you call someone with a rather high intelligence stat, but a low wisdom stat. I know all this stuff about stuff and people. I don't realize why I should not do something because of that information I have. Yeah, it's kind of like that, and it's going to be funny as hell.
He stealthily undid the bolts, holding the grate he was looking through, concentrating on each screw with the Force, one by one.
Ooh.
Before long, he was lifting the panel
that.
silently away and dropping down to land 3 feet in front of Dr. Sheena, who had been looking down at her data pad when he landed. Almost walking directly into the Padawan, before pausing and snapping a scowling face up at him, she did not react well to his presence.
Yep.
Hey, Doc, how's it? She screamed, so loud and so suddenly that Gaffin almost didn't precognate fast enough to cover his ears. Every one of the beings in the room didn't precognate fast enough to cover his ears.
That is not a word I was expecting to hear. For example, the word precog meaning future sight And he just passively doing that. I mean, I know people are saying that the magic system, because at this point when you combine the force and the warp so thoroughly, it's not psychic or whatever the hell the force is. It's flat out magic at this point. Space magic. And he's just passively precognitive. Okay, wow, I was not expecting that.
Every one of the beings in the room dropped what they were doing to look over at the pair, a sudden stillness taking hold. Gaffin smiled sheepishly and was about to say something in an attempt to break the tension when 8 clones shoved into the room, rifles out.
Yeah,
it took a couple of
good response
minutes
time
for everything to recombobulate after that, but eventually all the scientists were back to work, the clones went back to guard duty, and Dr. Sheena went back to referencing her datapad, only rarely interspersing a glare into the mix for Gaffin's
D
sake.
Park.
"Why are you wound up so tight?" Gaffin asked. For some reason, his words seemed to annoy her even more than his surprise did.
Really?
"First of all, I'm always tense around Jedi. You are dangerous, illogical, and problems seem to go out of their way to find you."
To be fair, only 2 of those are their fault. The third one is literally Palpatine throwing it at them. But the first 2, yeah, there's a lot of people who definitely live to that. Although the illogical one is just all people in general, so technically it's applying, but it's not the specifics. But yeah.
"Even, or should I say, especially, the little ones like you," she snapped. "More like we go out of our way to find them," he muttered. "And secondly," she continued, "and I'm not that little. There are scarier things out there than Asajj continued. And I'm not that little.
Oh, he was talking to his brother. I could barely make it out.
Asajj Ventress and her separatist friends. If your Jedi magic was half as impressive as your order says it is, then you should have seen this before we did."
What?
As if to prove her words, she walked over and thrust her datapad into his hands.
Oh, that's the
Gaffin
species.
hummed and
Big
nodded
head.
as he looked down at the datapad, though he understood nothing from inspecting the odd data sequences and jargoned results written all over the digital file. "Do you see?" she asked. "I see a datapad I can't read," Gaffin said blankly. Dr. Sheena huffed, snatching the pad out of his hands and then showing it again from her hands. "This part right here," she said, pointing to a box filled with text and a long sequence of numbers and letters written in Bothan. "These are the results of a hyperwave spectrogram analysis. Do you see this number here, after the dot?" Gaffin nodded. "Yeah, that's Bothan for 3.7, right?"
She's a scientist. He's not.
Close enough, I
He's
guess.
also a Padawan.
The point is that there's never supposed to be a number after that decimal.
Why?
It makes no sense. It's too much.
Why?
Too much what? What do you mean? Gaffin asked.
Okay. I have mixed feelings about this section right now because on the one hand, I don't like it when you're talking around things, but it's being done intentionally here because of the viewpoint character. If we were in her viewpoint, for example, we would know what this means and probably get dialogue giving more context so we'd understand it. We're not in her viewpoint. And honestly, that might give away the game, where the tension in this scene is that she has information we don't have. So they're transferring it over through to him. But since he's, let's be honest, a kid and therefore an idiot, he don't know. He's also a little bit headstrong, so stereotypical Jedi protagonist. And he doesn't get what's going on. So we're finding out with her explaining it to him. So it's both exposition and the tension of the scene, finding out why this is a bad thing. I just don't like this kind of reveal because it's easy to draw it out too far. And I personally just think any drawing it out, like other than why is this bad and then not getting an answer, is something bad. Specifically, it's just not my favorite type of writing. It's not bad writing. It's just not my favorite type. So it's not even bad. It's complicated. Anything done well could be good in writing. I don't like these constructions of scenes. But it's working here for the purpose that was intended. So I'll give it a pass.
Trickle of unease dripping its way between his thoughts. Dr. Sheena was always a raw bundle of nerves, but this was a bit much even for her. He could feel her panic, feel how much she was suppressing it. The doctor was genuinely terrified.
Why?
"You idiot. It's a hyperwave. Don't tell me you don't know about hyperwaves."
No.
She said, incredulous. Can you meditate on them? Because if not, I don't think Master Ren-Fi would really... No. It's got nothing to do with your dumb magic. Look, Every time an object moves in or out of hyperspace, it leaves a gravitational wave, a hyperwave. It's like dropping...
Oh, so it's literally a pulse from something large coming out. So the reason there shouldn't be a decimal there is because it's bigger than anything they're used to. So it's something huge, which does fit with the sizes of most 40K ships. Huh. Okay, that makes sense. Again, I don't like how they're belaboring the point. I get why they're doing it. They're showing her characterization as being someone who does two things. One, she's intelligent. Two, she's high strung. And I guess the third thing that I definitely remember to mention initially is she is doing that thing where someone really smart overestimates everyone around them, assuming they're going to understand what they're saying. I am an idiot, but I have a lot of family members who are geniuses. I am not. Sometimes when they're talking, yeah, because they think the basis of knowledge is equal to what they would think is a baseline, but their estimate of the baseline is a lot higher than it should be. And you're seeing her right here falling into that trap, which could also be an issue later on when she needs to explain something and does it in a way that no one can understand because she's explaining it with terms at a different level than is actually comprehensible by the people speaking. So yeah, cool way to characterize her, but again, I don't like this style. It just feels drawn.
Putting a stone in a pond. The bigger the stone, the bigger the wave. Okay, Gaffin said. But don't we use radiation to track hyperspace travel? Yes, because hyperwaves are normally too faint to be used reliably. A single Venator-class Star Destroyer has a hyperwave reading of 0.00003. That's not even detectable by a planet-side scanner. Gaffin felt like the floor was slowly dropping out from underneath.
Is he figuring it out or not getting it?
But then why can't we even record this? Didn't lots of sensors get triggered? Yes, hyperwaves are harder to read, but they travel much farther and faster than Coronu radiation, which dissipates relatively quickly when compared to the rolling momentum of a hyperwave. But what does that mean? There aren't any Confederate forces or Republic forces operating outside the galaxy. Isn't there a natural phenomenon that could explain this?
The funny part here is I have no idea how this matches with later lore in Star Wars, but I'm going to give it a benefit of the doubt because I've been told the person writing this, a fan with too much time, is, again, a lore master when it comes to Star Wars and 40K. So, yeah, maybe this is something that they can figure out and do in Star Wars, and it came from later books and or movies I just missed. Because later on, they were moving freaking planets, and actually previously, in the far past, they also moved planets. But just things that were super massive moving that were, well, probably comparable in size to whatever, not even a Hyperstar Destroyer, but actually, I really need to check that up. What the Executor look like by comparison to a 40K battle barge? That would actually be really curious for me to look at. I know I've seen the numbers, though. Yeah, that's for later. Just, maybe this is something that exists in Star Wars, this kind of way to look at. I don't know. If they're just making it up, though, they're doing the techno-babble right to sell it, at least.
Gaffin asked. Dr. Sheena shook her head and slid her finger across a screen, swiping to a new page of the report. There are sometimes special meteors with certain mineral elements which can react with tachyon fields to briefly enter hyperspace.
I figured this was
the
original
largest
art.
One of those
cool,
ever recorded had an
Markings?
estimated wave of
Probably in New
0.000000007, and it only traversed a quarter of a light minute before dropping out of hyperspace. It can't be that. Well, what about Purgles? Space whales are pretty large, and they can drag their wounded into hyperspace, so...
Is that a thing?
Maybe it's just a bunch of extragalactic Purgles towing something? She looked at him flatly. Extragalactic space whales towing something with a higher mass than potentially the entire Republic fleet.
Space whales. I wonder what story I've had involving humans, maybe with powers that are para, would it involve something like that? I don't think that's an intentional reference. But as a massive fanfiction fanboy, yeah, I think that one's just a little skittering too far to weaver through that one. Kepri, moving on.
Do I actually have to tell you how stupid that sounds?
Yes.
Well, it's
probably
not some giant monster, so what are you even so scared of? The unknown?
Yes.
Gaffin shot back. No, you discount parlor trick salesman's apprentice. Think. It's not natural, and it doesn't belong to us or the separatists. Think that...
He's not very bright.
He stuttered, flustered and blushing, but drawing a blank.
It's a fleet, she shouted. An extragalactic fleet! A huge fleet, a veritable solar system of stuff just got thrown into close orbit of our galaxy, and it is most likely stuff that belongs to someone, understand?
Gaffin felt chills.
Okay, one. Dude. The only part here is it's purple. I know that's a reference here, but anything purple in 40K, you know. No. If I need to explain that, I don't want to. Because YouTube does not like explaining exactly why purple is not a good color. Yeah, anything to do with the Emperor's Children, man. And also, I know it's not. So whatever it is, it's a cool reference all the same. Just showing how big this probably Gloriana class is by comparison with Battle Barge. More importantly, all I'm thinking right now is, you know, she's paranoid. I mean, justifiably, but she doesn't know that part yet. But if this actually happened in canon, or I guess extended legacy canon of not 40K, Star Wars with the Yuzun Vong, it's like, oh yeah, hey, it'd be really nice if you actually cared when they started invading, unlike everyone else who didn't. It's like, they're only taking a small section of the galaxy and slaughtering everyone and taking a suicidal pleasure and doing horrible, horrible things. It's fine. Yeah.
Well, wait, he said. How do we even know they're dangerous?
Fleet.
She looked up from the pad, showing him a huge red radius near the system. A line underneath it said, projected movement potential. We don't. What we do know is that they have a larger fleet than us, than potentially any single military to date. And that is as good as knowing they are hostile. Gaffett said nothing after that, letting the information be absorbed into him. So, what are you doing now? He asked, almost numb. We are trying to figure out exactly where this fleet is supposed to be right now, she said, tapping away in a frenzy. Aren't you going to report this to Master Renfai?
Honestly, that part doesn't really make sense to me, just because if they have a device that can register it, if they have more than one device, they could easily find out where. With 3 points, you can more or less say where anything is. You just have to correlate when they hit to find time and how it travels, and then just work off that. I mean, a 4th point would be nice to see which dimension it is, but, you know, directionally. But still, is there like only one ship? I thought they had a flotilla and not just a single ship, unless it's the only ship with the device and they just can't figure it out from that. You know what, just to make it easier on me, I'm going to pretend that's the case.
What for? I already sent a report to the Chancellor, and I told you, you can't do anything about this. You might as well not be here. We're too far from the fighting to get clone reinforcements all the way out here, now for a week at least.
She's an idiot.
She snapped. Well, no, we can't do anything by ourselves, Gaffin admitted.
Bullshit! Also, he's literally the general in charge of the clones. You kind of want to make sure he's in the loop. Gaffin is an idiot. But also, her prejudice is literally going to probably get someone killed horribly. I'm just calling that right now. I don't think anyone is going to like that on the 40K side. I mean, just the alien in general part they won't like. But this is also going to get her probably shot sooner.
But we
could, that death flag is major.
Negotiate for help from nearby systems? Reinforcements, maybe? They don't have to be clones, he ventured. She put her datapad down with a clatter, and he was sure she was going to yell at him again. But when she turned back to look at him, she wasn't glaring at him. Well, she wasn't just glaring at him. She was also blushing. Oh, frag, right. I guess we could do that.
No, she's actually listening. That's more than I expected out of her.
It had been nearly a week since Orion and his allies had been stranded in deep space by the failing of the fleet's navigators. Far too long by his estimation. The chapter master had watched as...
Just gonna throw it out there. This is a weird thing to see in 40K. A well-trimmed beard. Yeah, normally it's either big beard and you're a space wolf, or it's mohawks. You don't really see facial hair in 40K, mostly because it's just not really a thing. So I just really love seeing someone with a goatee. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I wish I could grow it here, but every time I try, it fails for some reason. I hate it. But just, yeah, it's just cool to see facial hair and not a mohawk because, God damn it. It's like, I know the game started in the 80s, but does everyone have to have mohawks standard? Personal gripe.
Every single three-eyed psyker across his broad fleet and those of his allies reported the same.
I just noticed, yeah, he has the tubes in his
chime.
head. Oh, that always freaks
me out. The Emperor was dead. There could be no other truth, at least this was what they howled as they were dragged from their viewing ports and sight stations. The problem behind this was twofold. Firstly, word of the Emperor's evident demise was spreading panic and heresy through the fleets like a plague born by words. Fed by the fear they faced in their becalmed state, it had been all Orion could do to instate order where he could and flush chaos into space whenever he found he was unable to subdue it. Secondly, whether the Emperor was dead or distant, the navigators were almost entirely useless, and that left them floating in the void with nothing faster than a beam of light to travel by. It would take them hundreds or thousands of years to reach the edge of the galaxy at materialistic speeds. He needed warp travel back online, and he...
Ooh. Sorry, he's talking about something that almost everyone, including official 40K authors, don't seem to ever touch on. Traveling in the warp is fast. Sometimes. Sometimes it's actually faster than even when you left, such as you get there before you left, because fuckery in time happens. But it is also sometimes very slow. There's not any specific thing there. But outside of the warp? No. Even reaching 100 years to do any of that shit, that is a long travel time, even for incredibly fast ships. And 40K doesn't have incredibly fast ships at an individual non-faster-than-light level. When you're doing physical engines, 40K generally leans more towards the hyper science, but still within the realm of it's not magic, which is weird considering this is a universe with actual magic in it. They're not fast ships. A lot of Star Wars ships can be faster, at least in the sense that they can use hyperdrive more effectively. 40K ships, in a straight out race, yeah, they don't actually move that fast. So if they're not using the warp, they're more or less stranded until they realize the warp is completely clean and not demonized. So they have a massive advantage there. But until they realize that, yeah, they're just going to move really slowly. So I can't tell if that's metal or just massive scarring on his face.
He couldn't wait around for the navigators to get a hold of themselves. Weird. Already, Chapter Master Javik Thune of the Crimson Razors had departed with his entire chapter fleet, along with nearly half of the Astra Militarum and a quarter of Battlefleet Zektek. He didn't know whether to call the man a fool for charging into the warp without navigators, or a visionary for doing what Orion was about to do now. Black Templars and their unofficial successors were not known for their tact.
Oh, so it is actually a Templar he's talking about, too.
But galaxy be damned if they weren't decisive. Sir? Asked Brother Tordennis. He stood behind the HoloLens operator, waiting to be signaled to begin. Orion felt his face tighten, but nodded, standing to address the glossy obsidian lens pointed towards him by the tech adept and his boxy contraption.
I know it's not the biggest deal right now because he's using a hyper zoomed in image, but I hate how it's zooming out by just pulling little bits in, down, that up. Sorry, it's the lack of smoothness on there that actually bugs me. It's not a huge issue. It doesn't impact the story, just the edit choice. It's not a bad one because it's still the right image. And that is a cup shaped into a skull. This isn't even weird for 40K.
When the ancient space marine saw the blue light on the surface of the device flicker to life,
that would be a
he
blood
began
angel.
to speak.
Oh.
Brothers of the Skywatch, cousins of the Tempered Hands, allies of the Astra Militarum and Battlefleet Zektek.
How many different
It is time for
legions,
elucidation.
chapters are here?
All of you have heard the damned portents cried out by our navigators, and I have now gathered enough information to say with certainty that the truth of our situation is far stranger than we could have expected, yet less dreadful than we may have feared. Our astrogators have been manually observing and cataloging the constellations around us in an attempt to discern our precise location outside of the galaxy. All of their findings return with one conclusion.
Something I want to highlight here, and this is something you don't see a lot in new 40K art for anyone, or even fan art, the hyper attenuation of the size of the torso, especially compared to the what look like, by comparison, minuscule arms. It's just something that actually does fit with a lot of what you are told is going to be a Space Marine. Just the really thick torso. They're massive on a human scale, and then they put really massive armor on top of that. So having these over, just bulging breastplates makes sense. But a lot of the times they've actually started to slim it down, not just in Primaris art, but just art for every generation of Space Marine. They just look more slim, more sleek. This guy looks like he's in Terminator armor, and honestly, if you told me he wasn't in Terminator armor, I might very well believe it, because it's just beef. But also, it looks like standard armor, just really girthy in a way that most armor isn't. Especially when compared to arms that just don't seem to go low enough. Yeah. Which, again, is something that is part of the lore for Space Marine, so it's a good choice of art, but just not one that is really used much anymore.
The constellations are wrong. Either the universe itself has been impossibly rearranged, or we are not looking at our own galaxy. Our attempt to breach the Cicatrix Maledictum has somehow resulted in our forces being transported unthinkable distances away from our Emperor. He is not gone.
He is fallen? Probably.
We are. He paused then, letting his words sink in before continuing. Now that we know what situation we face, we have only one recourse. We must enter the nearby galaxy and take stock of our new situation once within it. Perhaps we shall find a way
Do they know it's a new galaxy yet?
Among these strange stars. And if not, it may be that we were meant to arrive here first and prepare the way for our Imperium to come. In either case...
The fuck? How did he jump from God is dead to we're in a new place as the forerunners or vanguards of a new fleet? Did I miss something?
Find a way to return
whatever.
To come. In either case, I call now upon your courage.
I mean, he also could be bullshitting and be right at the same time.
And your strength, for we will need them. There shall be no reinforcement, no resupply. The Codex says nothing about this kind of situation, nor does any other protocol.
Yeah, he's definitely not a Templar. I mean, I knew that because he mentioned a Skyburner? Skywarden? There's definitely more than one chapter here.
Path is ours to carve, lest it be carved into us instead. Fate has thrown us far from our undying Emperor and expects us to wither under its burden. But fate is a fool, for fate does not yet understand that distance and time are mere petty obstacles when faced with the determined faith of the Imperium of Man. He took his seat then, watching the lens adjust to track him. Steel yourselves.
This is a weird image for two reasons. One, facial hair. Nice. Two, mohawk. Of course it's a mohawk. But he's actually holding what looks like a chaos skull, because I don't think anyone else had horns on it. And he has the double Aquila, so he's not chaos himself. It's just weird that he would actually have something of chaos as a trophy. And it looks like an Imperial fist, maybe? Yeah, I didn't think they were big trophy takers of, things that are literally part of chaos. And maybe it's just a cool thing he's about to crush for demonstration purposes. I don't know. Also, yeah, that does look almost like Terminator armor with the setup around his head. Cool.
We go forth to find...
And I probably should mention, because I brought it up earlier, the massive torso on the previous guy, even this guy, in what looks like very possible Terminator armor, because of the overall carapace up here, is actually less massive in the torso. So his trunk is actually less bulky than the previous guy, even though he's in what should be thicker armor. Again, just little things like that are really interesting art choices.
Find the unknown and make it kneel before the will of man. Faith is the duty of the righteous, and only in death does duty end. Go now, and prepare to do yours. He nodded, and the light flicked off. Orion turned to look at the line of his assembled captains, standing near the back of the room. Send out the orders to redeploy the navigators. Chain them to their stations if need be. All I need them to do is give us a direction and keep the ships near each other. If they won't or cannot, shoot them. Ensure the replacement is present. And if the replacements do not capitulate, ask 5th Captain Anar Solston. The chapter master turned his bright yellow eyes on the man, intense as twin rings of unblinking stars. We are departing via warp space at 1300 hours sharp.
Originally I was going to say I hate that little zoom-in mechanic for the same way I didn't like the pullback where it like layered in top and then bottom, or top and side to change the size. But here I think it works better because you're zooming in on a liquid orb, specifically the eye, talking about the yellow eye and the, well, from what it's been explained to me, very much dark side of this person, because 40K is basically, the dark side is the entire warp, where Star Wars is, there's still a balance before it got fucked. And so having yellow eyes makes sense. I wonder if that's just one of those little things that's going to be where every psych or anyone psychically attuned, or just Space Marines in general, will have yellow eyes because this. I mean, except for the people from, not Nostromo. I don't want to say Nostromo. Vulcan's homeworld. I'm pulling a blank there and I'm missing it. Who would have just solid red eyes. Actually, was it solid red or iris? That's going to bug me now. Whatever. It's cool usage, though, just to show that little connection point, even if it's not real.
We have navigators or not.
Also, the wibbling does work here because of the liquid. Ooh, space. The sometime explored frontier. What? No, you son of a... Wait for it. Was that an avatar? It kind of looked like a blue face from... God damn, it looks so similar I can't track. Come on, damn you. Show me your secrets. I hear laughing, so it's either the laughing god or the deceiver. And honestly, with a blue face, I can't tell who it is. Damn you. And we'll see that face. If we just take it scene by scene, every individual frame, we'll get there. Oh, it was Palpatine from the classic art of him, shadow in the background. This might even be from one of the covers of the movies. Oh, goddamn. I should have figured that out. I heard laughing. I went to the 40K side because we were just talking 40K.
God Emperor, preserve us from the dangers of the void.
Ooh. I think this is Battlefleet Gothic. That is what this style of art resembles. Never played the first one. And I sucked at the second one so hard I can never beat it. Or the intro. Because they're doing a warp translation in the new reality they're in. How are they going to react to their, well, not being no god, but also no chaos demons? Or are there? That would be bad. Dude. The Navigator because of the third eye, yeah. Or is it the Astrogator? I can never get those straight. And I think the Navigator is the one with the third eye, and the Astrogator is the one doing most of the other stuff on the more physical side. Now, I'm not saying I'm salty that you built up to the warp translation for the first time in a brand new universe where we know there's no chaos, or at least much less chaos. I don't know. It would be kind of freaky if there is chaos because they're kind of an eternal force in the places where they do exist. I want to see how they react to, hey, it's not trying to literally eat us. I want to see how they react to that. And you cut it right when they did the really cool dive into it and just... Boy. It's cool. I like this. I think the writing in this one is a lot more in your face and just good. It's showing a lot of details and showing a lot of characterization for good and bad. And honestly, that's good because you're having everyone hyper competent. That gets really old as a trope really fast. So having characters with foibles, going with a Padawan instead of someone competent who would understand what they're looking at right off the bat, and then talking to the scientist who did know what she was talking about, but was kind of fucked in the head enough with her prejudice against Jedi that she was not thinking entirely rationally. That works because it shows people who are maybe not perfect, because perfect people are perfectly boring in any stretch. And it does get old fast. So yeah, I like this. I think this is actually improved writing even from the first chapter. And I'm being told to really look for chapters 3, 4, and 5. Most people say 5. A couple have said 3, and one person did say 4, but then I think they corrected it later on. But whatever. I don't know what's coming next because I haven't looked ahead. But it's hard not to because this is getting good. And I like where it's going. I like the voice acting variants that are being brought in, and just some of the individual art that's being done here, showing exactly what the characters look like. That's cool because it's just neat. It's just really neat. It's just always fun to see fan fiction of a really good series that has really good art. So I'm geeking out a bit. Otherwise, if you haven't already, there's a link below to the original videos. Hit them up. And when you're done, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and let me know if there's anything I missed, because there's a lot going on here, a lot more subtext than I thought. And I'm going to give this author a lot of credit because there's just a lot of thought put into this that makes sense if you know more context. And I probably missed a lot. But otherwise, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.